And welcome back. So you can see we're inside of our 2010 parts ram at this point, and what we're doing is getting ready to take some parts off this parts ram and use them for their intended purposes. So what we're going to start with is taking out the driver's seat, which on these rams it's pretty straightforward to get the seats out, provided you can get the bolts to break free and they're not rusted in place. But on this particular ram, to show you here, there are a couple of electrical connectors because we do have airbags in these seats. We do have heated and ventilated seats in this on these bucket seats, as well as a powered seat for the forward, backward, lumbar adjustment, so on and so forth. So the two connectors we're worried about, and I'm gonna get you some, hopefully get some decent light in here. You have to forgive the camera work, it's hard to get in here because there we go. You can see them there. It's just these two connectors here. On this particular clip here, there's three actual wiring harnesses, or three electrical connectors. This third one here on the end, light keeps rolling on me. This third one here on the end goes into this center console here. So we're going to worry about that one right now. We will worry about this one later when we go to migrate this center console out of this truck and into our 2012. But for now, we've just unclipped the two connectors you see here that correspond with these two connectors coming off the factory harness. And then we're going to work on getting the rest of our bolts out. It's just 4 bolts after that point that hold these seats in, and they are once I can focus, looks like they're 15 millimeters. Like I said, we got the two front ones to break free pretty easily. I'm going to work on the two back ones now, and then we should be able to get this seat out of here, bring it into the garage, and I'll show you what we got in store next. If you remember in the previous video, I commented on this piece of vinyl here being ripped, because typically the seats are leather in the middle and then vinyl on the ends, and I did find a place online that sold complete kits where you can take the tops and bottom covers off and redo them. And also in the previous video I made a comment on we're going to replace the heating and ventilated seat elements out of these seats, since we're reading an error in the truck right now with the resistance reading of the heating elements in them. Again, I mean, they look good, don't get me wrong. Whoever again had this truck took really good care of at least the seats in the interior, because it does look quite nice in here, even for being a 2010, as I commented on earlier. But I'm going to show you the difference between these seats, which have been, obviously, especially the driver's seat, having the most wear and tear on it of pretty much any vehicle out there. The driver's seat will have the most wear and tear on it because there's always somebody sitting in it. So I'll show you the difference in what these seats look like now. We'll go through the process and strip the covers off and put new covers on. And again, the reason why we're doing this is not only just the rip that you see here, which this is, this is mendable. They do sell kits that will repair this vinyl. But since we knew that we were going to have to tear the seats apart to get access to the heating elements underneath to repair those, we went ahead and just bit the bullet to redo the covers. And I'll cover that more when we get to that step, as I got a few other reasons why we want to change these covers out. But with that being said, I'm going to work on getting the 2 rear bolts out of this seat, and it looks like the seat itself will just kind of lift up, slide forward, come out of some tabs that are right here in front, and we should be able to get it out of here hopefully relatively easily. I'm going to work on that and I'll bring you back one moment. And welcome back. So you can see we got the driver's seat out. I need to make a correction. The front bolts are 15, the rear bolts are 18, and as you can see, we broke the head off one of the bolts out of our parts donor. Now this is our parts donor truck, so I'm not really concerned about it, because once we get done, we're going to put all the parts back in here that we're not going to use, just kind of loosely, and then we'll have a salvage yard come you know, pick it up and turn it in for salvage at that point. But I did go underneath, because this is came from a northern climate. I did go underneath and soak everything down with the rust penetrant, so I'm giving that a few minutes. We were able to get this rear bolt of the driver's seat out okay once we broke it free with a breaker bar. Impact took it out the rest of the way. This one started to come out and then stopped. And as soon as it did that, I ran it forward a little bit to get it to go back in, and basically just rocked it back and forth with impact, and it finally got to the point it seized up. It wasn't going to move anymore. And once that happened, I just had to resort to using a 1/2 inch breaker bar on it and just kind of working on it until finally the head broke. So we'll have to be, obviously with this one being the parts truck, I'm not as concerned with breaking a bolt off here or there, but I am concerned, obviously we will be concerned when we go to take the seats out of the 2012, which I don't think is good, which I hope won't be as big of an issue, because again, you've seen the underside of it. There's not a speck of rust on it versus the underside of this one. When I showed it in the previous video, again, you can tell this one's from up north. You can see by the pile of rust pieces that are falling off of it just from using the impact a little bit. Just gives you an idea of kind of what you're fighting with here. So be prepared that if you got to take these back seat bolts out, again, fronts are 15, rears on this particular Ram are 18. And I'll show you one of the rear bolts here, the one that didn't break. Once I can get it here. There we go. Like I said, it just sprayed the bottom of it down where it protruded from the underneath the truck really good with rust penetrant. And you can see it didn't make it quite all the way through, and it also looks like, unless I'm seeing that wrong, it also looks like they've got these Loctited in place, so you're kind of fighting that as well. But like I said, this one broke loose with a little bit of penetrant. Hit it with a 1/2 inch breaker bar just to break it free. Broke it free about a turn and a half to 2 turns, and then managed to get it out the rest of the way with the electric impact. But these rear bolts are so far shaping up to be quite the pain in the rear. But as earlier, as I was pointing out, that third connector you saw underneath the driver's seat just goes to the center console here. This particular center console has 3 power points in it, which I'll have to confirm with the wiring schematic, but I would fathom a guess that the wiring that you see there is we got 1, 2, 3, 4, looks like we got 5 conductors. So that would be at least 3 of the power points plus a ground, and then they got a 4th one in there. So that may be either the light for the automatic shifter that lights up at night when you've got the lights on, or one of these wires could very well be the release solenoid. So remember, you can't put it in gear until the engine's running, you got your foot on the brake, or you have your foot on the brake, and that, you know, that solenoid wire could be one of these 5. Again, we'll have to confirm it with the schematics. We'll have to see if any of these even feed the power points, because if they do, in order to get these power points to work in our truck, if we don't have this bigger harness already underneath the seat in our 2012, we'll have to take and see if we can track down where this harness is going to, in order to see where we're getting power from. You know, trying to unravel this from the harness may be a bit of a bear of a task, but you know, we could always run our own 12 volt, positive 12 volt up to those power points, you know, switch 12 volt. But again, I'm rambling too much. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. The other thing we need to look at in our 2012 is seeing if we're missing any of these pins, because again, the seats are powered on this one. They're not in the 12. And we also have heated and ventilated seats in these, and again, they're not on the 12 as well. But the 12 does have a lot of this harness wiring just kind of sitting underneath the seat already, just, you know, nothing's obviously utilizing it. So we're going to have to see if the wiring options are there on the 12, or if we're going to have to potentially maybe track down exactly where this harness goes to and plugs into and splits off to, maybe we got to steal the entire harness, maybe not. But again, it's going to be wiring issues that we will get into at a future date, because I'm rambling too much. And just to show you here, you can see that we've got at least the driver's seat out, and we're going to get this in a, I'm going to see if I can also start to break the bolts loose in the passenger seat, and then we'll get this seat in the garage, and then we'll start on it next. But once I get that passenger seat, at least the bolts broken loose, I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. So you can see that we got our passenger seat out and all the debris that was underneath. We did manage to break another bolt. Again, it would only come out so far, and it eventually seized up and wouldn't tighten or loosen at some point, so we just had to kind of pry at it with a 1/2-inch breaker bar until finally either the bolt came loose or it snapped off, and it eventually snapped off. But again, this is our donor, so it's got enough remaining bolt holes in it. The fronts came out fine with no issue, and at least we have one in the rear that we can put the old, we'll reinstall the old seats in here just to make it easier for someone to come pick it up. And again, don't worry, this truck's not going to go back on the road again due to its age and the amount of rust damage and it being an accident, in which that's why we got it from the auction. Yeah, it again, just to summarize it, it's not going to go back on the road again, so having that extra rear fastener for the seat is not critical. We did find a fair bit of change, as you can see, that was underneath both seats thus far. A mystery USB device that I don't dare plug into anything that I own. And what we're going to do is get these seats in the garage and prep them for the next stage of activities. And you can see here on the passenger side, it was the same thing, 15s up front, 18s in the back. And on this connector here, it's just a single connector on the passenger side versus the driver's side that had dual connectors. So we'll show you a little bit more of the seats once we get them inside and start the tear down on them, and I'll bring you back in a bit. One moment. And welcome back. So I got you zoomed in on meter. In the last part of the video, just showed you that we removed both the driver and the passenger seats and prep for putting some new covers on them, as well as some new heating elements. And just to show you here, I'm just doing a resistance check per the book. And what I'm going to do a resistance check on, I'll show you what I'm doing. I'm just using some of our test probes out of our AES Wave kit. And I've got you zoomed in on the meter, which is in resistance mode at this point. And I'm just going to probe the connector that goes to the rear heating elements on the seat back. And one moment, let me get these probes in place. And I'm going to show you the reason, probably at least for the driver's seat, potentially one of the reasons why it was throwing a resistance out of range code, which is another reason why we have to take these seats apart and replace the heating elements in them. Hold on, I got a probe getting fidgety. There it goes. So, and I'll move the camera here in a second and just kind of show you what I'm doing. You can see that comes up at 231.9 ohms. Now, per the book, when measuring that, with the ventilated seats for that back element, it should be more around 9.8 ohms. So you can see that heating element, which again, this one goes to the back seat, is a little bit higher than it should be. I'm going to grab one of the new heating elements out of the bag here. We're going to make that same resistance check just to show you the difference between the new one and the one that's obviously checking as bad at this point. Let's see here, let's get our probes in. Make our touch screen up on our camera. You can see 9.3, and per the book they're looking for about 9.8-ish with ventilated seats, which is what we have here. So you can see that obviously the replacement ones that we got are within spec, and at least the back heating element in this driver's seat right now is way out of spec from where it should be. Now I have the connector for the passenger one. I'm sorry, for the seat itself. It looks like, let me show you this, what I'm doing here. So this is the bottom of our driver's seat. There's a connector here in the back that's gray in color, 4-wire connector. This is the one that goes to the heating pad that makes up the back of the seat. So the seat back. The one that comes up into the seat cushion part of it, it looks like, and we'll find this out when we disassemble it, it looks like it comes down in through this wiring bundle here and connects into this much larger connection here. So it's a little bit more of a pain to do a resistance measurement on that one. So what I'll do is when we get the seat disassembled, because we know we're going to have to recover it anyway, and I can gain access to the actual connector going to the heating pad for the seat cushion, then we'll verify it does in fact run into here, and then we'll do a resistance measurement at that point and just see if the seat cushion one's also gone as well. And again, it's neither here or there. As you know from a previous video, we went ahead and bought replacement elements for both the seat back and the seat cushion for both, as well as new leather / vinyl coverings, which we're getting ready to go on to here next. And you can see this is one of the vents. And in this, at least in this particular make and model of Ram and how they handled it back in the day, it's literally, I believe this is just a 12-volt fan. And it plugs into the ductwork, a little piece of plastic ducking that is made up of, and I can show you here, this is the pad that goes onto the seat cushion right here, or one of the replacements. And you can see where that fan would just snap into here, has a little bit of a ductwork on it, and then blows the air through this material and into the seat, because this is completely encased by plastic. It's got the double-sided sticky tape on it, so it looks like this will be the part that sticks down towards the bottom of the seat, and this is the part that'll, you know, shoot the air and heat up through the seat. And again, you can see that piece of ductwork there, and the back has the same thing. So once we get this chair disassembled, we're also going to run 12 volts via lab bench power supply into each one of these fans, just to verify the fans, the ventilation fans themselves are okay, because you've got a prime opportunity here of where those ventilation fans are bad and have to be swapped out. You know, they can be done while you've obviously got the seat disassembled. A little bit more, you can see this is the HSM, as they call it, or the heated seat module. This controls the heating for not only the driver's seat but also the passenger seat. The passenger seat just comes into another set of plugs in here as opposed to the driver. There's also the heated steering wheel in this particular Ram, just FYI, also routes down and plugs into this module, which is again underneath the driver's seat. And we'll get into more of this when we start to adapt these into our candy apple Ram, as we call it now, or Project X, whichever you prefer. We'll get into more of the wiring on this, because we will have to do a little bit of custom wiring from what I can see from the diagrams. It looks like the driver's side of our 2012, remember these seats came out of our 2010 donor Ram, the wiring for the 2012 looks to be in place already underneath the driver's side, so we're set. What's not in place is the wiring that interconnects this module into the passenger seat that you see here. So we may have to pull that wiring out of our 2012 or 2010 donor, or just trace down the wiring that we need out of this connector and just run some custom wiring of our own doing across the other side in order to make it to our passenger seat here. The other thing because the only thing that comes to the passenger side on our 2012 is just the wiring for the airbag, which is built into the seat. Now, FYI, the seats we're going with here do not have airbags into the seats, so we're gonna have to. We got a little bit of a hurdle to overcome, but it's not major. But basically, we had to tell the truck that it's no longer going to have airbags in the seats. And don't worry, the airbag system will remain active when we're done. I'll cover that more in a future video, but it's an item that comes up quite frequently, not only if you're doing factory swaps like this, but if you're doing like aftermarket seats, you know, you have to tell the truck that it no longer has an airbag in the actual seat itself. So again, on our 2012, the only wiring going to the passenger side is for the airbag module. So we also have to get a power feed, which is the same shared power feed that this one uses for its powered seat. We've got to get that same line tapped and run over to the passenger side, so that way its power controls have power as well, or it's just like its powered seat controls have power, because remember, there is no power anything in our 2012 up here. The only thing in the seats again is just the seat belt monitoring connector, as well as the airbag connector. Other than that, everything about the seat in our 2012s is completely manual, no heated, no ventilation, and kind of we're adding all that to it. So like I said, we'll have a little bit of wiring to do, but I digress. I'm going a little bit too far on a tangent here. We'll cover all that in upcoming videos. But don't worry, that's what I'm in the process of studying all the wiring and schematics for now. And let's see, also you'll see this as part of the video as well. You'll see a module underneath the passenger seat. Now don't let that confuse you. This module controls heating for everything in that truck, or at least off of the 2010 it does. So again, both driver, passenger seats, as well as the heated steering wheel are controlled here. This module has nothing to do on the passenger side with the heated seat or the seat operation at all. What this is, if you're curious, is the inverter module. Apparently in a 2010 1500, that's where they elected to hide it. So some models come with a 110 volt inverter that you can plug light loads into, like maybe a phone charger, a small laptop, things of that nature. Well, that's where they decided to hide it. It was underneath the passenger seat. So don't let that fool you and make you think that that's part of the heating system. It's not. And what we will more than likely be doing, I'll leave this in here, even though we're not going to use it, because that's not where our 2012 hides its inverter. So basically it's just going to be a piece of hardware that's not going to have a use. And yeah, I may remove it and just leave the plug and cover up the plug, or I may just leave the module in there just for giggles. I'm not sure yet, but either way, not part of what we need to look into. And again, I digress. So I just wanted to confirm and do a quick resistance measurement on that, confirm that at least we know that the heating element for the back of the seat on this is bad. And then what I'm going to do next is get this up on the probably either the table, or maybe even just throw it on the tailgate of the truck to have some room to work on. And then we'll start tearing apart this seat and getting the coverings off of it. Now the covering came from a place called the Seat Shop, and in the description I will link their install video. They have a very nice deinstall video that tells you how to take these seats apart, how to get the coverings off, and how to get them on. So I will add that into the description as well. But with that said, let me get this seat moved and start prepping to take it apart, and I'll bring you back in a moment. And welcome back. So as you can see here, we're just in the process of getting our electrical panel taken off here on the side. If you're having trouble getting these clips to release, and be careful on this side, because this one's broken. I actually broke it, I will admit. It'll be fine, but it actually has a piece of plastic. It actually has a plastic tab that goes up and locks into here. So if you just kind of start back here and break and get your clips to release, then this will kind of pull down. Now you don't have a lot of slack in this from what I can see, but you've got enough slack to get your wiring. But if you're having trouble getting those clips to release, since you have access to underside of the seat, if you come back here underneath here, and you can kind of push in on the tabs here on the side with a trim removal tool, while using another one from the outside to help kind of get this to pop loose a bit better. But again, if you're dealing especially with plastics, and especially old plastics like this one, Just be careful, because like I said, unfortunately I broke the tab on that one, but it'll be fine. It still has enough remaining clips to kind of hold itself together. But I'm just going to get that wiring connector unplugged. And it looks like we have another one down here going to this switch here, and then we should be able to get this piece out of here. Okay, so let me continue to work on that and I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. So I just want to show you this. This lower button here actually has the connector end on it that once it's fed through, connects up right here. And you can actually just unclip that connector, and it allows this to fall forward. So again, on the driver's seat and the passenger seat will kind of be opposite of this. Let me get that light out of your face there. Is start unclipping it from this side, work your way up. Take this clip off first underneath the seat like we saw. Start unclipping your trim on this end, let it slide forward, and then that way it gives you a bit more slack to get to that back connector. So I'll bring you back in a minute. Went ahead and before we tip this up to get the screws out, there's a Phillips screw here in order to start removing this piece of trim, and I believe there's another Phillips screw back here as well. Now on the opposite side, I went ahead and removed the seat belt. We got a little bit of an issue with this one. We may see if we can take that apart and free that up and get it to work again, or we may just take one off of our red Ram when we pull the cloth seats out and just replace it. But this connector, as you can see here, gray connector, it plugs into the below the seat here. So I just went ahead and just unclipped that connector and took the fastener out. That is a, let's see, it ended up being a T50 Torx bit to fit that bolt. And you can see there is blue Loctite on it, so it wasn't too terrible to get that out. I was able to break it free by hand. So that at least gets that detached and out of the way for our further disassembly, because you can see that these have come unclipped over time, but you can see there's a couple clips there. That seat belt, although on yours you may not have to remove it if you don't have to, once I unclipped the wiring here, I was able to kind of rotate that seat shackle forward in order to get to, we'll have to eventually take that Phillips screw out there to get this piece of trim out as well. So what I'm going to do next is flip the seat up so we can gain access to the back of it, because I believe there's another Phillips screw here that we need to undo. I'm going to take care of that and I'll bring you back. One moment. We got our side panel off that had our controls on it. As I said earlier, you've got the one Phillips screw on this end. You've got a Phillips screw on the back cover screws into. Just had to flip this panel up, and this panel just clips in place underneath the seat on a couple of these plastic clips. You just clip them forward. That allows you to get the flap up and get it out of the way of the screw that's there. And this panel, as you can see, just has clips here that unclip it from the frame itself. And it has this extra piece of trim here. It unclips from that trim. As you can see, this piece here won't come off with this piece. So just be mindful of that. And as you can see here, okay, yeah, I thought that was a broken stud at first, but it's not. That's just where it's been resting up against this nub here. But you just got a couple, again, you just got a couple clips on this piece. So when you're separating this, like I said, it will come off. It is just clips, but it is plastic. So obviously the older the plastic, the more the care. And just remember that that piece is going to kind of, looks like, at least for now, going to stay with the chair. So I'm going to continue to watch their deinstall video and see what steps next, and I'll bring you along for the next piece. One moment. So I want to make one point about this cover. You can see this cover right here. You can see it's got a notch on it where it actually notches onto the bit of the seat frame right there, that little tab that's sticking out. So when you're popping this cover off, make sure you work from, and again, this is the driver's side, so the passenger side be a little bit different, but it'll still kind of notch in on the front. Just pop the plastic off, coming from this direction, work your way forward, and then just slide this forward just to make sure that you don't break this tab off here, because if you do, then the front won't hold itself as secure and flush as it should. I'll bring you right back. And welcome back. So we got our piece of trim off our opposite side of our seat removed. You had the screw, if you remember, that was underneath the seat belt. You also had one screw on the back here. And then when you get this piece off, it'll start to kind of unclip on its own. But again, you've got, just like we did on the other side, you've got a piece of trim here that's going to stay put. I found it easy just to get a trim removal tool inside of here and just kind of work it from side to side and just pop it loose from this piece. That way, make sure that we didn't break any clips on this piece that's staying here. So now that we have all of our trim off and all of our screws out at this point, we should be able to start to, per their video, you can see that this side was already unclipped. We should be able to start popping the clips out. And they do make a cautionary tale to not try to unclip the clips that are underneath the seat by your hand. They state to use a couple of flat blade screwdrivers to get underneath those J clips, or I should say not clip, but they kind of look like a C clip. They kind of look like that, and they're on the fabric piece, and they kind of grab a hold of the rail. In other words, if this was if this screwdriver was a rail, that clip kind of comes over and kind of clips onto the railing like that, and you can just kind of push them off. But they caution you not to do that because the undersides of this seat can be pretty sharp, and you may potentially slice your hands up trying to get those clips off of there. But I'm going to get this seat turned over, bring you back, and kind of show you a little bit what I'm talking about. One moment. So welcome back. So you can see kind of an example of this is the front clip that comes off the upholstery. You can see it kind of white piece of plastic here that clips onto a metal rail, and they kind of just want you to use a pair of screwdrivers and kind of walk that off of that clip. You also have the clips here, if you can see it, that hold on this piece of side fabric here. Again, because you just don't want to reach in here and try to grab these edges with your fingers, because you can run into some pretty sharp pieces. And on this, if you have ventilated seats and you're wondering how to get that ductwork off of that fan, you can see that this fan, it just has some small plastic clips. You can see that it's got 4 of them, and those clips clip onto the plastic ring that's inside the ductwork there. So again, just kind of put a piece of trim removal tool in there, work it a little bit from side to side, and once you can get one of them to kind of pop off, then you can kind of work on the other 3. But just be careful, they are plastic and they are rather small clips, because if too many of these clips break, then you're not going to be able to securely reattach your ductwork. Let's see, so we've got this piece here that we got to unclip. Again, this side kind of unclipped itself. And I'm looking for where we might potentially have another. It may just be this front one here and the ones here on the side. I'll have to go back and watch the next segment of their install video, and I'll get to work on this and I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. So yeah, it looks like that's the the set that we had to remove to get the bottom, or to continue with the bottom disassembly. There's side clips here, and again, these kind of were already unclipped on their own. And you've got the top clip here, and I can kind of demonstrate what they're wanting you to do in order to save your fingers, is just to get in here with a flat blade screwdriver, as you can see here, and work on this, and just kind of kick this out like that. There we go. And you can see, and just working that on down through the line here to get that off. And it would be the same process here on the side clips, is just to get in here with a screwdriver like this and just pop these side clips off. Let me get you some light on this one. We'll do this one in real time just to kind of give you an idea. It's not terrible. It's not horrendously hard to do. Let's see. Yep, see that? We can just kind of get the screwdriver in there and give it a twist and get that one to pop off. So that takes care of that side, and you can see see all that tearing. Why there was so little tension on the side of that clip when I popped it off. It's because the side was just kind of getting ready to leave, so to speak. So another reason to put new covers on it. So I'm going to continue to work on getting this clip off, and I'll bring you back for the next piece. One moment. And welcome back. So underneath that flap that we took off earlier, it had these clips that just kind of clipped it to a section of the spring underneath. In order to, if you remember, we moved it to get to our back screws. Underneath that is this next clip that's on this bar here. So same process as before, that we're just gonna get a screwdriver on the edge of this clip here and start backing this off. As you can see there, it didn't take much. And we may be able to, now that we've got that started, yep, just kind of clip it the rest of the way off. All right, so beautiful. Okay, so we got that piece off. I'm gonna bring you back for the next step, but we're getting, you know, one step closer to getting this bad boy disassembled. One moment. And welcome back. So with the clips that we removed thus far, we should be able to now pull the bottom seat cushion off. And there will be some wiring. We want to make sure that we clear, as well as, because we got ventilated seats, we've got a piece of ductwork right here that has to be routed away from the fan. You can see it sitting down there at the bottom. And we're just going to pull up on this and bring this between the springs. Get that up and out. Okay, that's now out of our way. And let's see what else we're looking at here. Let me look at this from the back. See what else we may be clipped onto. Oh, lost another penny. I've been finding all kinds of loose change in this thing. Loose change, you name it. I guess it comes along with having a seat that's now that old. Okay, so we got that off, we got that off. It looks like we're clear. I just need to support this from the front because I'm working on kind of a small table here. Just so it's easier to get to and easier to film. But I think, oh, okay, well, we hold up here. Looks like we got a little bit of a plastic push down button holding in this part of the piece of fabric off the seat, which I did not see them remove in their video. But let me go get I'm gonna go get a little push clip removal tool in there and see if I can pop that loose. And it looks like the one on this side over here is long since missing, so we'll have to replace that. Okay, so let me get this push pin out and I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. So after we got our push pin out, also remember we did this earlier when we tested the circuitry in the seat. You've got a electrical connector here. You can see that this is our old heating pack / ventilated seat underneath. And you have that one electrical connector that's in the very back center of the seat itself, and it connects right here. So that one has to come out as well. We removed it earlier because we were, like I said, we were testing at the beginning of the video, but just remember that needs to come out. So you can see you've got that clip on the back we took off, that electrical connector, clips here, left and right hand sides, as well as the clip on front. And then you have to feed that, because this truck has this option, you have to feed this through get it basically detached from the electrical fan underneath and get it weaved out of the springs. And with that, that is our lower seat cushion. And then now that we have this done, it gives us the ability to concentrate on starting to remove the rest of the pieces and clips and such to get our top cover removed. Now on this particular side, for the driver's side here, we're going to take it a step further. Not only are we replacing the cover that you see here, but we're also going to put a new piece of foam here on the driver's side, again mainly because the driver's side is going to be the one that's going to always be the most worn of pretty much any vehicle out there, as well as again a lot of it just for it being worn, plus it gives us longevity. And like I've heard quite a few people tell me that you know, you put a new piece of foam inside the seat, especially the foam that you sit on, and apparently it'll make, you know, a night and day difference in the ride quality. So again, when we get ready to do all the reassembly, I'll explain a little bit more about that. But we're going to go on the next step here and work on whatever clips we need to remove to get our top cover off of here. So I'll bring you back in a moment. And welcome back. So yes, I moved it to the floor because it's a bit easier to deal with. But you can see that first channel right there I'm touching with the shop light. It's kind of got like a folded over clip that we need to break loose first there. Let's see, plenty of metal on this seat, thankfully, for the shop light. Again, we're just going to take a flat blade screwdriver, work it into this crevice here, and see if we can get this clip to start to untwist for us. And as they comment in their video, if you watch their video, they will tell you this is a bit tricky because of just how deep they have these in here. There we go. So you can see that we were able to kind of get underneath this and roll it forward, get it off that edge. There we go. So that takes care of that one. I want to look and see what we got next. And of course that does confirm that our electrical connector that we were looking at here on the side earlier, this one does go up into the back of the seat, and looks like it's the electrical for the heating element, and also I would say the fan assembly. So earlier when we were testing, I misspoke. When we were testing from this connector earlier and measuring the resistance and found the found the incorrect resistance value, or a bad resistance value, we were testing the bottom cushion heating element and not the top one, because again, we'd have to test from this connector here. But again, like I said earlier, what we'll do is we're going to just probe from the heating element connectors directly, because it'll make it a bit easier to deal with. Which it looks like, if we flip that piece up you just saw me do there, is going to be one of these two connectors here. And what we can do is we can look at the replacement element, which is off sitting on the other chair there, and it looks like that is our heating element, and that one should be, the gray one should be our fan. It looks like the green one's our heating element. So what we can do, we can just push down on that tab, get this to release, and then we can just do a quick resistance check of that element just to verify that it is bad. And it will also, we shouldn't have to undo, I mean, that electrical, well, we'll have to undo the electrical in this case because we're replacing that element. But we shouldn't have to, if you're just covering the seats, you shouldn't have to undo that electrical to get this cover itself off. At least I wouldn't think so. Okay, so I'm going to continue to kind of watch the uninstall steps here, and I'll bring you back for the next piece. One moment. And welcome back. So now that we've got most of our clips, we've got our clips all undone, there's a set of hog rings up here at the top that we'll have to cut. There's 3 across the top according to their video. But the first thing they want you to do and prep for rolling this cover up on the sides is to get underneath here and hopefully you'll hear it, but to basically break free the Velcro on both sides of the seat, which we now have off at this point. Excellent. And that will help you roll up at the same time both on the sides. Now that's if you're going to keep one thing I failed to mention earlier is that I'm showing you basically their install, which their install is assuming that you're keeping the cover. Now one thing that you can do is if you're just you're not going to keep the old covers, you just want to take them off to put the new ones on, as they also state in their video, you can just kind of get a razor blade and cut across the seams and basically just quickly cut the old covers off. Now I may do that on the passenger seat, but I kind of wanted to go through their install and kind of show you as well what their install looks like, at least from somebody who hasn't ever done this before. But we've gotten this done. We've got our Velcro separated on both sides. I can feel our hog rings up here at the top. So now what they want us to do is, again, while working both sides of this, start to roll up the sides of this up until we get to these hog rings, and then we'll just take some side cutters and cut the remnants of those rings off. Now they did give us a package of hog rings for putting this together. However, I did have to go out and buy a set of hog ring pliers. I got that from Amazon. I'll put a link in the description. But that's what I'm going to do next. Now that we've got our Velcro separated, I'm going to work on getting the sides of this this seat rolled up, and then we'll get those rings cut and continue on from there. You can see that, yes, I did go ahead and remove the headrest and prep for taking this cover off. And there's some interesting tricks to getting these pieces out here. Again, we may just cut the cover and get at it from the top to release these, because we know we're not keeping the cover. But they do show a method in their video of just kind of tapping on the bottom of these to get them to release from the frame. With that being said, that'll be the next step. Again, I'll bring you back when we get up to the hog ring portion of this and show you what it looks like. But again, we're just going to work on left and right hand sides of this, and this is why it's kind of easier to have this on the floor to do this. Now with that Velcro separated, again, we're just going to roll up the material evenly on both sides till we get to this point, and I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. So you can see what we're doing here. We're just kind of rolling up the sides as you can see it. Just basically getting the cover to kind of turn itself inside out is what we're doing as we pull up. And it's easier if you keep the progress even on both sides. That way you're not, it's because if you don't, it starts doing this where, you're higher on this side than this side, and you start actually pulling against this side of it. So let's see here. You can see we're up to our hog ring portion, and trying to get you in there where you can see that bar. There we go. You can see that bar in there. Let me get the shop light a bit closer for you. Well, if I can get the shop light to actually shine where I want it to shine. Shop lights are always where you never want them to be. Okay. I think that's going to give us enough light. Let's see if I can get in here. Viewfinder back up. There we go. You should be able to see there's a hog ring there. Hog ring right there in the middle, and then there's a hog ring on that end as well. So what that is, there's like a metal bar that's inside the foam of the seat right here. So what I'm going to do is just get a set of side cutters, cut each one of those rings, and per their instructions, make sure you get all the little pieces of those clippings out. And also make sure you just kind of throw them off to the sides. That way one of those pieces of the clippings don't inadvertently end up poking your new seat material when you're trying to do the reinstall. So I'm going to get those cut and continue to kind of roll this up in the back here. And then eventually we're going to hit a point where we have to deal with getting our headrest latches out. And I'll try their method first of kind of trying to get these to release from the bottom, and I'll try to show you what that's like, and I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. So you can see we got our cover 90% off, all nice and turned inside out. You can see the back half of this, and just like on the bottom of the seat, there's that ventilation fan, and we'll have to get this ductwork unclipped from here to get that old heating pad out. But what they're referring to get these headrest retaining clips off, and you can kind of peel the yellow foam back to see them. There's one right here that may not focus in very well, but at the very top of that, in the direction of where the releases are, let me just confirm that. Yeah, so for instance, we're looking at this one here. Yeah, we got a release right here pointing towards the left, and this one's, they're both pointed towards, at least from looking at the back of the seat, towards the left of the seat. So in the same direction that the releases are on, that would allow you to adjust the headrest, is a pair of catches. And again, I'm fighting with the damn shop light again. Okay, let's see if we can see one. I can see it, but it's going to be kind of hard for me to get a camera up in here to view this. There we go. Maybe you can see it kind of there on the edge, but there'll be a little release button, and when I get one of them out, I'll show it to you. But that little release tab is on this, again, the same side as the release would be to move the headset. So headrest, I should say, not set. I keep saying set. Right here. So on this one, which is the passenger seat, you see this release mechanism, so there'll be a tab underneath that you have to kind of push in to pop it out. Now, one of the methods that he showed was simply just putting like the butt end of a screwdriver up against this pin and tapping on it from the bottom to kind of get it to release. You could do it that way, or as they also suggest, if you're not keeping the cover and you're just slicing the covers off, then another thing you can do is come up here to the top and just cut yourself a nice slit, a nice opening to get those to pop out, or to be able to push in on those tabs. So I'm just going to get myself a nice flat blade screwdriver, because it looks like to me we've got pretty good access again. Just peeling the foam back and looking up in there where those are at. And again, what I'm looking at is right here. You can kind of see me pointing at it. Let me get you some light. It's harder to do this one-handed. There we go. So you can see that one of those columns right there. And that's what we're looking to get released and out, so we can finish taking the rest of our cover off. So I'm going to concentrate on that, and I'll bring you right back. And welcome back. So I just want to show you kind of knocking one of these pins out. Is that I was able to get in and depress the tabs, and I've kind of already got this one started to knock out. But it's once you get that tab depressed, and hopefully you can see this, I'm just going to take the bottom of the screwdriver there, put it on the bottom of that tab, and then just tap on it with a hammer, and then we should be able to get that tab to start pushing out. I should say that holder to start pushing out. So that's all I'm going to do there. I'm going to tap on this a little bit, and then hopefully you can see kind of how far down that tab is coming out of that bottom brace. And then once we get that to start to move, we can finish pulling it out from the top. But like I said, I already tried it on this one. This one's moving. And like I said, once it was just a matter of getting in there, kind of peeling the foam back like this to get in there and push that tab in. And now I'm just going to tap on this from the bottom to get this started. And then we should be good. So I can't really, unfortunately, it's hard to set you up to see this. Maybe I can do this one-handed. Okay, so we got our And again, I'm just going to lightly tap on the bottom of this. There it goes. Kind of heard the tone change there. And you can see now that that is now flush with the bottom of this. So if we come up top side, you should see that these have moved. You can see that one there. You can see that one's moved, and actually I can take and now pull that one completely out. And to show you what you were kind of dealing with there was, you see the tab right there. That's what I was pushing in on. So it's always in the same direction as the release tab for the headrest itself. I just push that in, and then you see us tap it from the bottom. And just remember that when you go to put these in, or at least on the driver's side here, these are, if you're looking at the seat from the back, or both to the left, and I think the passenger side does the same thing. Yeah, they both go off to the left. Let's see if this one comes out as easy. Yep, there it went. There we go. And once again, you can see that tab right there. Cool. Okay, we got it. So we should now be able to, as you can see, remove our old cover. So now that we have access to that, what I'm going to work on next is getting this filter popped off here. And we'll do a quick resistance check, because I promised you I would, but we'll take our fan. Let's see, let's grab our fan wiring here just to make sure that that is actually okay. So this earlier, see, that's for the heating element, and yep, that's for the fan. Okay, so just as we thought earlier, this is your fan electrical connection, this is the heating element electrical connection. So we'll do a quick resistance check there. We'll get this popped off and get this prepped to get our new heating elements and installed, and then we'll start prepping to put our new covers in place. So again, it's not hard, it's a bit tedious, but maybe just a tad bit time consuming, largely in part because I was filming this at the same time. This is the first time I've tore one of these seats down like this, but obviously it would be something you'd want to do to preserve the seat material if you were going to put it back on, meaning that you just needed to come in here and get access to either this vent fan and change it out. Now the bottom vent fan you can obviously change out without having to pull all this apart, but if you had to change the heating element on the bottom or the heating element on our fan on top and needed to pull the cover off to gain access to it, you obviously don't want to just cut the cover off, because you need to reuse it. But as you saw, it's not too terrible, just a little time consuming, but it definitely can be done. So let me get to work on this. I'll bring you back when I do the resistance measurement on this, and we'll see if the one on the back of the seat is actually defective or not, and then we'll go from there. One moment. And welcome back. So you can see we're just probing it. I promised you I would. And once I can get a stabilize my connection here again, you can see that even the back of the heating element for even the back of the seat is reading 39.8 ohms, which is out of spec. It should not be that high. So we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna go ahead and do the replacement. We've got our ductwork popped off of our fan. Same process it was at the bottom. You've just got 4 little plastic hooks that snaps into, and it looks like it just feeds through the foam that you can kind of see there in the seat. So we've got our electrical undone, and what we'll do next is we'll work on getting this out. I am going to, I'll show you this on the the back one, but I am going to get just a little lab bench power supply in here and give this fan 12 volts just to verify that we're good there before we completely reassemble the seat, because if we have to get a new fan, I'd rather get it now and not have to assemble and disassemble the seat again. But let me go to work on that. I'm going to get this out of here, rig this one up to get it tested, and I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. Sorry, I'm going to have to abruptly cut the video at this point. We're right about the 1 hour mark, or a little bit over. I did try to upload this video in its entirety, but it has stuck in processing at least a couple of times at this point. So I'm going to try to cut this video in half, aka making a part 1 and part 2. But don't worry, part 2 will go live at the same time as part 1, and there will be links in the description to each other's parts in the event that you find yourself here starting with part 2 first and want to go back and want to watch part 1 first. Like I said, I do apologize for this. I'm just trying to get it through YouTube's processing at this point. But if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please consider doing so. For those of you who have subscribed, I thank you. And with that, we will conclude part 1, and I'll see you over in part 2. Thank you.